Hello, fourth graders. Our new read aloud book is going to be called Maniac Magee by Jerry Spinelli. It was a Newbery Honor Award winner in 1991, the year I graduated from high school, almost 30 years ago. Anyway, great book. I do this as a read aloud every year. It's going to be our next story that I'll be reading to you every day. The passages that I read are going to be a lot shorter. Wonder was such a long book. This is a pretty quick read. Like today I'll be reading pages 1 through 9, so it'll be quicker. And there is a quiz that you will need to answer that comes out in a seesaw assignment. So enjoy Maniac Magee by Jerry Spinelli. The first part is called Before the Story. They say Maniac Magee was born in a dump. They say his stomach was a cereal box and his heart a sofa spring. They say he kept an 8-inch cockroach on a leash and that rat stood guard over him while he slept. They say if you knew he was coming and you sprinkled salt on the ground and he ran over it, within 2 or 3 blocks he would be as slow as everybody else. They say. What's true? What's myth? It's hard to know. Finsterwald is gone now. Yet even today you'll never find a kid sitting on the steps where he once lived. The Little League field is still there, and the band shell. Cobble's Corner still stands on the corner of Hector and Birch, and if you ask the man behind the counter, he'll take the clump of string out of a drawer and let you see it. Grade school girls in 2 mills still jump rope and chant, "Maniac, maniac, he's so cool. Maniac, maniac, don't go to school. Runs all night, runs all right. Maniac, maniac, kissed a bull." And sometimes the girl holding one end of the rope is from the west side of Hector, and the girl on the other end is from the east side. And if you're looking for Maniac Magee's legacy or monument, that's as good as any, even if it wasn't really a bull. But that's okay, because the history of a kid is 1 part fact, 2 parts legend, and 3 parts snowball. And if you want to know what it was like back when Maniac Magee roamed these parts, well, just run your hand under your movie seat and be very, very careful not to let the facts get mixed up with the truth. Part 1. Maniac Magee was not born in a dump. He was born in a house, a pretty ordinary house, right across the river from here, in Bridgeport. And he had regular parents, a mother and a father. But not for long. One day, his parents left him with a sitter and took the P&W high-speed trolley into the city. A trolley is like a train that's high up. On the way back home, they were on board when the P&W had its famous crash, when the motorman took the high trestle over the Schuylkill River at 60 miles an hour, and the whole caboodle took a swan dive into the water. And just like that, Maniac was an orphan. He was 3 years old. Of course, to be accurate, he wasn't really Maniac then. He was Jeffrey Lionel Magee. Little Jeffrey was shipped off to his nearest relatives, Aunt Dot and Uncle Dan. They lived in Hollidaysburg, in the western part of Pennsylvania. Aunt Dot and Uncle Dan hated each other, but because they were strict Catholics, they wouldn't get a divorce. Around the time Jeffrey arrived, they stopped talking to each other. Then they stopped sharing. Pretty soon there were 2 of everything in the house. 2 bathrooms, 2 TVs, 2 refrigerators, 2 toasters. If it were possible, they would have had 2 Jeffreys. As it was, they split him up as best they could. For instance, he would eat dinner with Aunt Dot on Monday and Uncle Dan on Tuesday, and so on. 8 years of that. Then came the night of the spring musical at Jeffrey's school. He was in the chorus. There was only 1 show and 1 auditorium, so Aunt Dot and Uncle Dan were forced to share at least that much. Aunt Dot sat on one side, Uncle Dan on the other. Jeffrey probably started screaming from the start of the song, which was Talk to the Animals, but nobody knew it because he was drowned out by all the other voices. Then the music ended, and Jeffrey went right on screaming, his face bright red by now, his neck bulging. The music director faced the singers, frozen with his arms still raised. In the audience, faces began to change. There was a quick smatter of giggling by some people who figured the screaming kid was some part of the show, some funny animal maybe. Then the giggling stopped, and the eyes started to shift and heads started to turn, because now everybody could see that this wasn't part of the show at all, that little Jeffrey Magee wasn't supposed to be up there on the risers, pointing to his aunt and uncle, bellowing out from the mist of the chorus, "Talk! Talk, will ya? Talk! Talk! Talk!" No one knew it then, but it was the birth scream of a legend. And that's when the running started. 3 springy steps down from the risers, girls in pastel dresses screaming, the music director lunging, a leap from the stage, out the side door, and into the starry, sweet onion grass-smelling night. Never again to return to the house of 2 toasters. Never again to return to school. Jeffrey's running away. Last chapter for today is Chapter 2. Everybody knows that Maniac Magee, then Jeffrey, started out in Hollidaysburg and wound up in 2 mills. The question is, what took him so long? And what did he do along the way? Sure, 200 miles is a long way, especially on foot, but the year that it took him to cover it was about 51 weeks more than he needed, figuring the way he could run even then. The legend doesn't have the answer. That's why this period is known as the Lost Year. And another question, why did he stay here? Why 2 mills? Of course, there's the obvious answer that sitting right across the Schuylkill is Bridgeport, where he was born. Yet there are other theories. Some say he just got tired of running. Some say it was the butterscotch crimpets. And some say he only intended to pause here, but that he stayed because he was so happy to make a friend. If you listen to everybody who claims to have seen Jeffrey/Maniac Magee that first day, there must have been 10,000 people in a parade of fire trucks waiting for him at the town limits. Don't believe it. A couple of people truly remember, and here's what they saw. A scraggly little kid jogging toward them, the soles of both sneakers hanging by their hinges and flopping open like dog tongues each time they came up from the pavement. But it was something they heard that made him stick in their minds all these years. As he passed them, he said, "Hi." Just that. "Hi." And he was gone. They stopped, they blinked, they turned, they stared after him. They wondered, do I know that kid? Because people didn't just say that to strangers out of the blue. That's the end of the first reading of Maniac Magee. Bye.